So, Coach, for this fall event now, is that rare for you guys to have, or is that something you guys usually do every year?
You know, we go to one fall race every year. The fall season is actually pretty big, but generally we work all of the football games, so that really limits the opportunity to go racing. And head of the Lagoon, it probably is the best culmination of the regatta for us because it happens right before we're forced to get off the water. So today was our last day on the water. NC2A rules make us get off, so we won't be back on the water for almost 2 months. And so it kind of helps showcase, how we're doing, kind of this time last year and maybe some of the tweaks in training that we've done. So we were pretty excited to be able to go, and we did actually take 3 varsity aides and 1 novice aide, and we did actually leave students at home. We still actually had a couple of kids who weren't cleared for medical issues, injuries, and then others, for not getting their paperwork done. So we could have probably essentially taken a 5th boat if we wanted to. I think what we found really exciting, at least for the varsity program, we did finish 2nd and 3rd, and that within itself was very exciting. But the 3rd boat that rode in that field was further down in where it finished, but it was a minute and a half faster than the 2nd boat last year. So we feel like we've improved some training strategies on this year, and I think obviously the one place that we fell short was some of the students said, "Coach, we just didn't think we'd be fast." And we really looked at all the training we were doing, and we felt like we could really go out there and really wanted to be competitive with Sacramento. Sacramento is kind of that icon in Division I, where if we have relative speed to Sacramento, we know it's going to be a good year because Sacramento year in and year out is very fast. They have a great recruiting program, a lot of depth in that program. So to be within 10 to 15 seconds of Sacramento, I think that was pretty exciting for the ladies. And our second entry, our B boat, they I think probably could have finished in front of the A boat, but in the rules of head racing, you're supposed to give way to overtaking crews, and they were overtaking UC Davis, and UC Davis did not give way, and the coxswain was at least smart enough to stop rowing so that there was no collision onto the bridge, which is kind of the ins and outs of head racing. It's really a coxswain's race. There's every possible turn that you could imagine in racing, not at all like the spring season, the sprint racing, which is you line them up in a straight line and you say go and you row it as hard as you can. So I have to take my hats off to the coxswains for just how they finesse some of those turns. We have a young lady that's in her 2nd year that went out and showed the kids how to make that turn and probably saved at least 7 to 10 seconds in their total time. So they did a great job.
Well, knowing that you guys won't return competitively for 2 months, how important was it to get on the water and competitively against the other schools?
It was, it's really important because it's a long season, and you guys know that the time change just occurred, and we've spent the better part of 7 weeks just rowing around in the dark. We start practice at 5 a.m., and I think it was we had such great expectations when the time changed that we could actually see what was going on, and they looked horrible. The first day it was, I was like, okay, well, do they always look like this, or is it just because it's light that I can actually see what's going on? And then the second day was the day after the election, and I think everybody was kind of stunned about how things went, and then we had some just stellar rows. So there was a young lady that came into my office yesterday knowing that today would be our last practice, and we mixed boats. So it's like a big tossed salad, and you go out there and race each other, more sprint season. So we did our first 2,000 meter piece today, and she goes, "Coach, I don't want to row tomorrow because I had the best practice of my entire 3 years of rowing at Humboldt on Thursday before we went to that regatta." And there's some inspiration to that, because what we'd like to see is having more of those rows when we come back in January. So, the whole goal for the next 2 months will be to not have a repeat of last year where kids just didn't do anything. I think there was, some pretty good buy-in for 8-hour conditioning while school was in session, but they went home for that 3.5, 4 weeks between finals and when we start up in January, and there was just a lot of TV time and holiday cookies. So last year we suffered greatly. We came back in January. Some ladies were even slower in January than they were when they came back in August. So I really have to. It was exciting to see. It was fun to see. It's kind of just a nice little payoff for all the work that they did this season, and it was nice to see kids make the podium, and then just to see how surprised they were. So when they came into the dock, we said, "How was your row?" And they were like, "Oh, it was terrible." And I was like, so I held up and they were like, "No way." We took second. I can't believe we took second. So that was the other conversation we had this morning, that would they have raced it differently if they had thought they would be fast? And so again, that'll be some of the things that we really have to work on come spring.
Well, my last question, what happens between now and when you guys do return to get the season started?
It's a good question. There's, we're in our final month of school, so we have this week, we have finally that big break that we've needed probably 6 weeks ago. So this is where we see kind of I guess if there was a good time to get off the water, I suppose it's right now. Our freshmen are all pretty homesick, and your first break comes at the end of the semester. Our biggest goals probably over the next 3 weeks will be really just focusing on academics. How do you keep students focused during a period of time where now you don't even have the structure of practice? And for as silly as it is to have practice at 5 o'clock in the morning, they at least understand the discipline of going to bed early and getting up early. When you take that out of the scenario, then suddenly they stay up really late and they're sleeping in, and while they don't have more time, they're just not as effective as they are when they're on a pretty good regimen. So, the goal will be just how do we keep them focused academically, and hopefully they embrace that 8-hour conditioning between now and when we return in January.
Sounds good. Don't know how you guys get up so early, man. I go to bed like at 1 or 2, get up at 7, and still it's.
That's because you work